Sorry it took so long for this video to come out. My only two excuses is mainly my work's been picking up here recently, so I've been coming in at like 5 o'clock in the morning and, leaving out at like 4:30. Which means, you guessed it, my ass has got to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Which means I have to be ready and willing to be woken up at the butt crack of fucking 4 o'clock. And then work all the way to 4:30 p.m. And for some reason, the sudden time change does something to my body like Coca-Cola and Mentos. And right when I get off work, I'm instantly exhausted. My brain doesn't work right, my dick fell off, I can't even get no bitches, let alone a husband to clean the damn house. Then on top of that, there's really just nothing interesting to talk about. It's kind of like a slow street when it comes to news. There's nothing to go like, oh fuck mama, get my camcorder, we're gonna fucking do some news today, you know what I mean? That's pretty much why the video is slightly delayed. But sooner or later, this video will get posted and I have to talk about something. It was only when I worked like overtime today that I came up with a great idea for a video, a hot spanking new one. Why do people still do overtime with no real benefit? But let's start off with the first question, and why do I work overtime to begin with? I can give you a good enough reason why I do overtime, and that's only in like 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is mainly because I carpool with my father, mainly because I don't have a license. I could walk home, but it's usually an hour over, so I just usually just stay and just do the work anyway. And reason number 2, it kind of looks better on me that I do overtime, because usually I always say no to Saturdays. If all I gotta do is like a couple of hours and maybe that rare occasion where I have to work 2 shifts on like a Monday or a Friday, I would rather do that than to have to like wake up at the butt crack of dawn on a Saturday. Hell, the first time I've ever worked 2 shifts, I actually injured my toe. But it was fucking worth it because the manager told me if I worked like 2 shifts, I wouldn't have to come in on Friday. That was the best 3-day weekend I ever had. Because even though I hurt my big toe, I got to sleep in. But mainly the whole gimmick on why you would want to work overtime is mainly comes down to the thing we all care about, and that's money. Money is great, but the only problem with money, the only catch with money, is it wastes your time, and if you do overtime, you have to waste even more time. So it's not really free to get money. You use time to turn that into money. And time is very, very finite. In a lifespan, you only get so much amount of time, and when that time is up, that time is up. You can't add more time, you can't get more time, mainly because you'll be dead. And the worst part about it is you only get 24 hours in a day, and 8 hours of that is just getting sleep. Who triggered the alarm? Sorry about that. One of the Mexicans that I had down in my basement, they got out and I had to go, it was a real clusterfuck. I had to get a net out and shit. It's... Another one? Man, there ain't gonna be no Pepsi for these Mexicans once I'm done with them. Sorry about that, my uncle was cooking up something and it triggered the smoke alarm. I mean, the Mexicans were captured. They're down in the basement as we speak, reanimating Dora the Explorer, and I'm not talking about that shitty CGI one. Anyway, back to what my point was. My point is you only have 8 hours of free time. And that's depending that you work a 40-hour work week and your sleep consistency is 8 hours. That's probably doing 4 hours of whatever you want to do, and then 2 hours gaming, and then probably the next 2 hours just trying to rest and getting ready for the next day. And then you get to do it all over again. Now, 8 hours sounds pretty good, but let's say you have to work for 2 hours. Well, then take that 8 and turn it into 6. But let's say, okay, well, you're going to be working at 5:30 now. So take that 6 and turn it into a 5, and now you only have 5 hours of free time. But let's just take it to another extreme. Let's just say your boss just completely hates your guts. He looks at you like a shaved monkey with a Gillette laser. And he's like, you know what, Sonny Sam? You know what, you're gonna do 2 shifts. That's right, 16-hour shift. How do you like them apples, Todd? And that means that little 8 hour of, time you have is basically thrown out the window. Because guess what? Once you get back home, it's instant bed. Which means the only time you're able to process anything is when you're slowly trying to go to sleep. Now, is overtime the boogeyman that hides under your bed as an adult? No, that's the IRS. I'm just saying, that there's a certain time for overtime. And usually when you want it, you can't have it. And when you don't want it, it's like the redheaded sister that you don't want to talk to. It's like, ah, geez, now I gotta like be social and stuff, and I gotta wave at her. It's like, damn. Here's the real kick in the balls. Are you ready for this one? Now, I understand why, like, older people would take overtime, because they have a house, they have a, they have a vehicle, they probably have kids to feed. There's a huge incentive to go into overtime, because it's not about you and what you feel, it's about how can you make your kids happy, how can you make your wife happy, how can you make the house work. And some of that is picking up from your bootstraps and just doing the work so you can get extra money. And in an economy that actually works, that makes a lot of sense. But here's the thing. It does not make sense for a Gen Z person to do that. And you're probably going to have the boomers say, well, that's bullshit, because 40 years ago, I spent like 2 quarters and I got like a full-size house with a garage door and like a, hot tub and a pool and like, 2 vacations and a boat. But the thing about it is, that was 40 years ago. We're living in 2026 with the worst economy imaginable. To buy a house now, you don't need 2 quarters, you need multiple quarters. And when I first started working and doing overtime, it was great. Because, it was kind of like, okay, if I work a little bit harder, I can get more money. But the thing about that is I was making at the time, like, almost, like, $10 an hour. I was making $10.50. So, of course, it's going to be, like, good for me, because I could just turn that $300 check into a $500 check. But now I've gotten so many raises, so many bonuses, and just... I've actually, grown my stats a little bit. I have so much money, I can go to the Pack-a-Punch machine in Zombies and Pack-a-Punch my gun 10 times. And if you want to do the math, there you go. So nowadays when I do overtime and I get like a $900 check, I look at it and I'm kind of like, I could have just went home and like slept or like did something with my life. Like, what am I gonna do with $900? And before people start getting mad at me in the comments, I know there's 100 dozen people who would kill for that kind of check. And I'm absolutely grateful to be in the position that I'm in, because I know a lot of people don't have those opportunities that I have. And as much as sometimes I don't like my job, I hate my job, blah blah blah, the fact of the matter is it funds my stupid little escapades. If you guys remember my motherboard arc, if I didn't have a job, I wouldn't be able to turn around and get another motherboard like that. Especially DDR5. But really what I'm feeling now, and this is kind of the position that I'm in right now, have you guys ever played like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and like you beat the game, and you go out and just buy everything in the whole entire city? And once you buy everything, it's like you still have like a huge chunk of money that you don't know what to do with. And there's just nothing else you can buy because, the programmers didn't think you would actually try to spend all your money. And like those businesses that you bought in the game that you go to collect the money from, you kind of just stop collecting it because it's just, there's no point. That's pretty much where I'm at when it comes to overtime. It's like, alright, well, I collected my overtime money, well, let's just go ahead and just put it in the vault and watch it spin around, I guess. And it's almost kind of like I wish I could just pay the money back and just get my time back. I feel like my lifestyle is pretty simple. All I really need is a decent gaming PC, some food, and like just something to fuck, and that's pretty much it. And I completed those goals like 4 years ago. And I could, just get my life started, go ahead and start buying a house and buying a vehicle and all that stuff. But here's the thing. Even though I'm a very simple person, I live in my own range, I hold my money pretty well, I have enough money to stable myself, but I don't have enough money to stable myself, have a house, and have a vehicle. The way I'm looking at it as a Gen Z or like as a millennial or whatever you want to call it, is you would have to go in with like 2 other people to make that even possible. And that's like, you know, a certain percentage coming out of your pocket, and then a certain percentage coming out of their pocket, and so on and so forth, right? I think the whole idea of just walking into just a random house for sale and just buying it outright and just being able to live on it on your own, it's such a pipe dream. And there's sometimes where I look at the money I make and I go like, yeah, I could buy a house and be able to live in it maybe for a couple of months, but it'll never be like long term, like stable. Like I won't be able to hold on to that house by myself for like a long period of time. At some point I would actually run out of money. And that's not including the upkeep of like the vehicle and if I ever dared have a kid. If you were going to spawn a kid in right now and just raise it up without having them go to college, you're looking at like $40,000 for that kid. And that's to feed them, clothe them, get them to school, and all that bullshit. If you want to have a kid and like have them like actually go to college, you're looking at the prices of a Ferrari. Nowadays, it is just not feasible to do what people used to do during the 60s and just buy a house for 2 quarters. And that's like the second thing that I think about when like I do overtime, right? If the 40 hours that I make right now is enough to sustain me, just me alone, then why am I working so hard for extra money? Why am I wasting that time for more money? And the only answer I have is the more money I have, the more freedom I have. And that's it. But if the whole point is to collect as much money as possible and trade your time out for money, then how much time do you have to actually enjoy that freedom? And so when I actually get a check and I get overtime and, you know, my father perks up and he's like, hey, well, you can save that money for a house or da-da-da-da. My usual response is like, okay, I'll go ahead and marry my limited edition Bonnie Blue fleshlight at the end of my bed and we'll live as a happy family. And that's pretty much it. And if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you, because most of this was just me yapping and just kind of unwinding on what I think. I don't know if it's relatable, I don't know if it's interesting, I don't even know if it's funny or not. I'm just kind of just going off what I think. I apologize again that this video was delayed. I'll make sure to crack myself with a whip next time to make sure I get it on time. But other than that, like, comment, subscribe, skiddly boppity boop.